In today's video, we're going to look at creating angle and segment constructions. So there's 4 constructions that we're going to look at. The reason we're looking at this is the basis that every computer-aided drawing program, so if you're taking Mr. Larson's class or any similar class, this is what all of those drawing classes are based on. So knowing the background can help us understand how these programs work. So the 4 basic constructions that we're looking at this lesson are copy a segment, copy an angle, bisect a segment, and bisect an angle. And we are going to practice these by hand in class. So this is just a quick overview so you've seen what it is that we're going to do, but we are definitely practicing this together next time. So our 4 basic constructions, we have copy a segment, which pretty much means we are just drawing another congruent or equal segment. So we're going to draw a congruent or equal segment. Same thing, if we copy an angle, we are actually drawing another version, an exact copy of an angle, same exact measurement. So we're going to draw a congruent or equal angle. If we bisect something, bisect really just means cut in half. So if we bisect a segment, that means we're going to cut in half, technically in 2 equal or congruent pieces. Same thing, if we bisect an angle, we're really just cutting it in half. So we are going to cut in 2 equal pieces. And so that's what the word bisect means, that we'll continue to use that throughout the year. But bisect means cut in half. Alrighty, so the type of compass that we're going to use, and we'll practice using this in class, is actually one of these. And so this is a slider compass, a little different from the standard compass that you've seen before. And we do have samples of that. If you give me a moment, I can grab one of those. So this might be what you're used to seeing as a compass. And if you have one of these at home and you'd like to practice with it, I can definitely forward you to some additional videos or show you how to use that in class. But the reason I'm going to show you with the slider compass is this is closest to the tool that you'll have on the SOL to use. And most of our questions, to be honest, will be recognizing these pictures rather than doing them. But again, knowing how to work that tool online, closest to using this kind of compass. And so we have the center point on here. And when we use this, we want to look for the crosshairs. Now they're a little difficult to see in this video, but you'll see them a little bit better when we're in class. There are some very faint crosshairs that show us kind of where the center of the circle is. And that's where we're going to kind of use as the center of our compass. And then we have this slider piece that, again, 2 possible holes we could use to put in our pen. And the way we would move this, and again, remember this for class, is we don't forcibly move it. You're going to press very lightly on this center piece and the compass will slide along. So in class, if you're sliding this along and you can hear the grating teeth that's on there, that means you're wearing out the compass. Please do not do that. Always press that very gently and you can slide that along without wearing out any teeth. So here's our 4 constructions. So we're going to copy a segment and copy an angle first. The big thing is we need a place to copy this to. A segment technically is a line segment. It has a starting point and an ending point, or we could say 2 endpoints. And it is a portion of a line. So I'm going to start out actually by drawing a line, and then we're just going to cut off an equal piece of that segment. So I'm just going to draw a random straight line. So I'm going to use the edge of my compass as a straight edge. And I'm going to pick a random point on here. And that's going to be my starting point. And so I just need to use my compass to measure the length of that segment. So the way I'm going to do that is line up the center on one of my endpoints as close as I can get it. And then I'm going to move my slider until I can see the other endpoint in one of these holes. And so again, I know it's a little hard to see in the video, but we're going to practice this in class, but you'll notice it's stationed right over that hole. And just to double check, I'm going to draw a little arc through there. And then when I pick up my compass, again, being careful not to move the slider, you'll notice how I've marked the very end of that segment. I'm going to do exactly the same thing on this line to mark off the line segment, the section of that line. So again, center it over the endpoint that I started out. I haven't moved my slider. Draw my little arc. And then this segment now, this would be my new A. We could call it A prime. And this would be my new B, which I could call B prime. Again, we're going to practice this in class. This is just so you know what we're looking for when we practice that next time. So let's copy an angle. This one's a little trickier, but same thing. Here's my angle ABC. So I have my vertex, angle B, kind of the center of the angle. I need a place to copy it. So same thing. I'm going to give myself a place to copy the angle. So I am actually going to draw a ray, which again, you might remember from previous classes, a ray is something that starts at an endpoint and keeps going. So that means I need an endpoint. So let's put one there. This is going to be our new version of B, so let's call that B prime. I don't need to worry so much about where the C is, but I could use copy a segment to make it exactly the same. But when we're dealing with an angle, we're worried about how far do these rays open from each other. And so the big thing is I'm going to start out by actually marking an arc. So I'm going to move my compass. So this piece is centered over the end, the vertex. And I've got one of these holes somewhere over the line. Now I don't have to make it so it's right on that C. In fact, it's a little easier for me to see what's going on if I don't. So I'm going to go ahead and draw an arc, and I want to draw it so it intersects both sides of my angle. So I have an intersection point here and an intersection point here. I'm going to draw exactly that same size arc where I have my space to put my new angle. And when in doubt, draw a bigger arc than you think you need. And then all we need to do is we're going to mark off this distance. How far did we have to go to open up that angle? And we're going to mark that on this one. So again, we're going to go back to using the compass. But now, easiest way to do this is line your centerpiece up with that bottom intersection point. And then you want to try to find this top intersection point now in one of these holes. So again, you're going to want to look straight over it until you have the hole right in that spot. Just for good measure, I'm going to say, hey, there's my marking. I'm going to double check. Yeah, that's pretty close. Again, we're human. We're not computers. We're getting this pretty darn close as we can get it. And so then again, without moving my compass, I'm centering it at that first intersection point, just like I did on this one. Draw in my matching kind of mark. And there is where my new angle should open up. And so then I can use the straight part of my compass to draw my new segment. Or excuse me, my new ray. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually measure this. Neat thing about these compasses is, again, it's hard to see, but you'll see this better in person. I do actually have angle measures listed on the protractor. And so if I wanted to check my work, I can just line the center up with the vertex and the very edge of this. And I'm noticing that my line goes right smack through the middle between the 60 and the 75, that middle mark there. And so if I line it up on my other angle, I can see how well I did. There we go. And I did pretty darn good. Again, I'm a human. I'm not a computer. Computers are going to do this perfectly. We are just trying to get as close as we can. Okay, so the next two, we need to bisect an angle and bisect a segment. Excuse me for a moment. I need to fold my paper in half so you can actually see everything. There we go. So bisect a segment. Set your compass on one endpoint, and you want to set your hole here. So we're going to draw an arc that's bigger than halfway. Now I could go all the way out to the end of my segment if I wanted to, but I usually come in a little bit from that because it means my construction is not going to take up as much room. Now, again, we want to be very careful. We're centered right over our endpoint, and we're more than halfway through the line segment. And we're just going to draw a big arc. You'll notice I'm going over my text. It doesn't matter. I want to be very careful that I do not touch that center piece. I'm going to switch it over to the other side and draw exactly the same thing. So line it up as best you can over the center, anchor it down. And I do have to do this a little bit backwards since I'm not left-handed. And we're trying to draw another arc. And so wait a second, if we look at the arcs, and I'm going to twist this a little bit, notice how everything is nice and symmetric on here. And in fact, if I draw or connect those two intersection points, top and down, top and bottom, right smack in the middle, there is my midpoint. And wait a second, that's the same thing as the midpoint that we were doing the formulas for, right in the middle of the segment. So you could actually do this on a graph to see if you really got it perfect and use your equations to figure out, hey, is my midpoint in the right spot? Last one is bisect an angle. So we're going to start the same way we did before, which is center of your compass, right at the vertex. We don't have to line it up with point C. I actually like to come in a little bit closer to that because I don't like things overlapping as much, makes it easier for me to measure. But you'll notice I'm not keeping it really close to the center. I want to give myself a little bit of space to work. So same thing as I did before. Sorry, I'm using a very, very thin pen. That's why my lines aren't perfectly lining up sometimes. And I want to draw an arc so it goes to both sides, intersects both sides, new points. Okay, so now we're going to do something very similar to bisecting the segment. We are going to put our compass centered at the new intersection point, not the A, the new intersection point. And I'm going to draw an arc that hits somewhere in the middle. And again, if you're not sure where that is, just draw a larger arc. A lot of times I can actually just leave my compass set to the same width and I should be okay. So you'll notice the arc is somewhere in the middle of that angle. And then I want to draw exactly the same arc from the other side. Again, I'm lining it up with a point, not the C. So the new intersection point that I made, not the C. And then you want to draw an arc that intersects this first one. If it doesn't intersect, go back and draw longer arcs until they do intersect. So you could just extend the length of that arc as long as you need to, so it'll intersect the other one. And now the same thing as we did here, kind of X marks the spot. I'm going to use the straight edge, line up point B with my new intersection with my X's. And this splits my angle perfectly in half. If I want to check my measures, if this is split in half, that means both pieces are going to measure about the same. So if I use my little protractor at the end, it looks like 1/2 of it is 1 mark above the 30. So then if I line up the other arc, it should do the same thing. There we go, 1 mark above the 30. I did pretty good. So again, this is just a basic introduction. This is something you're not going to do in online practice. We are going to practice this by hand in class. So what I would do is on your notes, maybe just sketch these out so you have a good idea of what they're supposed to look like. Again, let me zoom out a little bit. And I'll post a copy of this as well under the video on Schoology, but we are going to practice these in class as our activity next time. Do let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you next time.